My name is Tadhg Ó'Cróinín. I'm a lecturer in the School of Biomolecular Biomedical Science. I'm the head of microbiology, and I also head a research group which studies how foodborne pathogens cause disease. So I've always been interested in microbiology, and particularly how bacteria cause disease. And the particular bacteria that I'm looking at is Campylobacter jejuni. So Campylobacter jejuni is an organism that actually lives in the guts of chickens and actually doesn't cause any disease for chickens at all. But when we consume Campylobacter jejuni, if we consume raw poultry products or uncooked poultry products, then it causes a disease in us. And that's really what fascinated me about it, the idea of how does the bacteria actually change its behavior. So my research group looks at various aspects of how this bacteria does this, particularly focusing on something called DNA supercoiling. So what the organism does is it changes the way that it packages its DNA, and by changing the way it packages its DNA, it can turn different proteins on. And by turning these different proteins on, it will actually change how the bacteria behaves. So if it changes the packaging of the DNA, the bacteria can become more invasive, it can become more likely to cause disease, or it can become more motile and more passive and less likely to cause disease. So we're really interested in understanding how the organism actually does this. I think the aspect of my job I find most rewarding is the fact that you're continuously surrounded by people who are learning. I think we often think about this as being just that the students are learning as they progress through their degrees, but actually I'm working with an awful lot of colleagues who have research groups and they're learning things all the time. So being in an environment where there's people continuously learning is incredibly rewarding, and it makes a job that can involve an awful lot of hard work incredibly enjoyable as well. I think the key bit of advice I'd give is to find an area of research that you're particularly interested in. I mean, carrying out research involves an awful lot of work, but if it's something you enjoy, it makes it much more easy to do. So obviously I'm going to sell the area of microbiology as being the key area where we need more researchers, but even within that there's lots of different sub-areas which are really important. You can think of the global pandemic that we're all enduring at the moment, and you can think of a range of different infectious diseases, solutions to global warming, trying to find ways to recycle biodegradable plastics. All of these are areas where we need more people carrying out more research. I think for microbiology graduates, there's a huge, broad number of areas where people can actually develop careers. I normally think in the broadest concept in the biotechnology industry, in reality, you're either using microbes to carry out a particular process, or you're trying to make sure that microbes are not interfering with that particular process. So really in the biotechnology industry, there's a huge demand for microbiologists. A lot of our graduates end up working in some of these large biopharmaceutical companies, which often have their European headquarters here in Dublin. Another massively important and probably returning to being an incredibly important sector is the food industry as well, where microbiology obviously is incredibly important, not just in food safety and making sure that some of these pathogens aren't present in some of our foodstuffs, but also using microbes to actually create products such as the brewing industry and of course the dairy industry as well.